So thank you, Rabbi and Mrs. Bergman, for creating this inspiring program. It's inspiring to me and to all of us. And it should be for a complete healing, complete refuah shlema for Avram ben Perla. So in the handouts in front of you, and each one has a page in Hebrew, Aramaic, the Gemara, and then it has a page in English as well. So we're going to learn about the concept of Areivut, Areivut, and if you're looking at the Hebrew, on the first where it says Shavuos, if you look 2 lines from the bottom. If you're looking in the English, so where it says chapter 6, Shavuos, 39a, 4. And in the so if you're taking a look in the English, it's going to be the last paragraph. So this Gemara in Shavuos said that when it comes to oaths, when it comes to false oaths or oaths for no reason, so then the whole world gets punished. Even though it's only one person who does a false oath, the whole world can get punished. And then the Gemara asks, so you seem to say that only when it comes to a false oath, if someone transgresses it, then others will be punished. But it sounds like that for any other sin, for any other avera, other people won't get punished. Is that true? The Gemara says, "V'haksid." Is it not written? "V'kashlu ish be'echad." The verse says that one person will stumble in their brother, and which means that one person will stumble because of someone else's wrongdoing. And Melamed, and this teaches us, and this is the famous phrase which I'm sure you're all aware of. Melamed, this verse teaches us, Shekol Yisrael, that all the Jewish people, Areivim are co-signers. Areiv means a few different things, but in this context, Areiv means a co-signer, like a co-signer on the loan. You borrow $100 from somebody, the person who's lending the money is not sure if you'll pay back, so you'll co-sign on the loan. So Melamed, this teaches us, Shekol Yisrael, all Jewish people, Areivim are guarantors, co-signers, Zeh Bazeh. Right? In some of the songs or some of the phrases, Zeh, but the wording of the Gemara is Zeh Bazeh. But one with another, each Jew, and there are some technical rules how it applies to kids, to men, to ladies, to each other. We're not going to go into the strict legal aspects of it, but the general idea is that every Jew is a co-signer on another Jew, which means that if someone owes, another Jew owes because they did something wrong, then you're a co-signer on them, and then you're responsible. So the Talmud wants to know then, how is every avera, wrongdoing, any different than a false oath? And we don't have the slide B here. The next page of the Gemara. The next page of the Gemara says when it comes to a false oath, even if you cannot do anything to prevent the person from doing wrong, you will still, and everyone else will suffer. But every other sin, every other avera in the Torah, you're only a guarantor if there's somehow a possibility that you can help prevent the person from the wrongdoing. But if there's no way you can prevent the wrongdoing from taking place, then you're not going to be held responsible. So you're a co-signer, but only you're co-signing to help that person make sure they do right. If you don't help, then you're held accountable. So much so, the Mishnah in Shabbos, and that's not in here, the Mishnah in Shabbos says that the chapter in Shabbos goes through some of the rules about what you're allowed to carry on Shabbos, and just like you're not allowed to carry in a public domain, from private domain to public domain, likewise, you can't put a package on your dog or your donkey and have your dog carry it for you. And there's a list of what things are considered carrying and what things are considered like a hat or something beautiful. And the Mishnah says that Rabbi Eliezer ben Azayir's cow went out with a ribbon between its horns against the will of the sages. Sages said that you're not allowed to let your cow go on Shabbos to the public domain with a ribbon. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah's cow went out. So for all generations, we read the Mishnah, and we see, it's been a long time, but we're still remembering Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, his cow he did wrong, went out with a ribbon. The Gemara says that it was not his cow. It was the cow of his neighbor. But since Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah didn't teach the neighbor, didn't protest, teach the neighbor not to do it, then for all generations, as we read Mishnah, it says Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah's cow went out with a ribbon. Right? So this might help answer a great question you had. You're going to come to Yom Kippur, and you're going to say, I'll hate for the sin that I did. You know, look, I never did that sin. Why me? Let me skip down, find some sins which I did wrong. So the most simple answer is that if somebody else, of all the Jewish people in the world, which you could have helped prevent, teach that person not to do that wrong, then as the Mishnah says, that's your Avera. You're held accountable for it. So that'll be a simple answer in case we're wondering why we're saying for the sin that such and such. Yes, realize that maybe, yes, we are responsible for that. So this Talmud teaches this concept of Areivut as it relates to being responsible and held accountable for punishment of somebody else. The next piece of Talmud should be on the next page. And that's the one that says Rosh Hashanah Chavtes. So in the Hebrew, in the Gemara, it's 2 lines from the bottom. In the English, it says on top Rosh Hashanah 29a 4. It's on the second column. And the Gemara says, and the Gemara continues the conversation, that if you're obligated to do a mitzvah, then you can be motzi, you can help discharge somebody else's obligation. So if I have a mitzvah to blow a shofar, the hair shofar, I can blow the shofar, you can fulfill the mitzvah. But if, let's say, I'm a child, so I'm not obligated to do the mitzvah, then I can't do the mitzvah to you. So you can only do a mitzvah if you're obligated the mitzvah. If I'm obligated the mitzvah, then I can read it, and then you can listen, and by me reading it, I can do it for you. But I need to be obligated. So the Talmud says, Tani Ahava, Bereda Reb Zeir. Ahava taught, son of Reb Zeir, Kol ha-brachos kulam, all blessings, Afal pi sheyatza, even though you have fulfilled your mitzvah already. Okay, so you fulfilled the mitzvah of whatever it is, shofar. Whatever the mitzvah is, you fulfilled the mitzvah already. Even so, motzi, you can still make that bracha for somebody else who didn't hear the mitzvah. Why can I make a bracha for somebody else if I'm not obligated anymore? I did my mitzvah already. So Rashi says, in English they quote on the bottom, and Rashi says, on the right side, Sharei Kol Yisrael, the reason why, that even though I did a mitzvah, and I fulfilled my mitzvah already, I read the Megillah already, so I don't have the mitzvah anymore, I did my mitzvah already. Still I can say the bracha, read the Megillah for you, even though I'm not obligated anymore. The reason is because I am obligated. As Rashi says, Sharei Kol Yisrael, Areivut zeh b'zeh l'mitzvahs. All Jewish people are co-signers. So, I'm obligated to read the Megillah. So I have a mitzvah. So I said, well, I read the Megillah already. Well, it's very nice I read the Megillah, but my mitzvah of reading the Megillah, which I have a mitzvah to read the Megillah, and I have a mitzvah that you read the Megillah.
And that's why you can have people who had already done certain service count for it.
Yeah, in each case, there's different factors involved. So, but the general concept is I'm obligated. So I said I did my mitzvah. No, I didn't do my mitzvah already. As long as another Jew who didn't do the Megillah, I didn't finish my mitzvah. Because I have a mitzvah for myself to read the Megillah, but I obligated for your mitzvah as well. And therefore I can do the mitzvah as well. But the Gemara says, Chutz Birkas halechem birkas hayayin. Now, if you decide you like to eat tonight a cookie, so you don't have a mitzvah tonight to eat a cookie. I mean, you'll make the hostess feel good, so it's a nice thing, it's a good thing. But you don't have a mitzvah, you don't have a chiyuv, an obligation to eat a cookie tonight. So since you don't have an obligation to eat a cookie, I can't make the bracha mezonos for you. Now, if I'm eating anyway, then I can make the bracha and you can listen, and then it'll work for you as well. But if I'm not eating, then I can't make the mezonos for you, because in that case, you're not obligated to make the bracha. Now, if you can eat, you can't eat without making a bracha. But you're not obligated to make the bracha, and therefore I cannot make it for you. Then the Gemara wonders, what about Rava? We don't have the second page, but the Gemara wonders, what about Kiddush, let's say Friday night? And the Gemara says, Kiddush Friday night, I could make for you. Because over there, even though there's Hagefen, part of the Kiddush, but there's a mitzvah, there's an obligation to make Kiddush. Since there's an obligation to make Kiddush, even if I made Kiddush already, Friday night, I can make Kiddush again for you. So from this Gemara we see that, first Gemara we see that the concept of Areivut relates that if I'm responsible in case you do an Aveira wrong, if I can help prevent you. From this Gemara we see that the concept of Areivut carries that I'm obligated in your mitzvah as well. Take a look at the third Gemara. That's on top it says the Gemara Sota, Lamed Zayin on the base, in the English, chapter 7, Sota, 37b. So it's on the first column on the left, the second paragraph. So the Gemara previously to what we're reading talks about that there are different bris, covenants which we made with Hashem as a Jewish people in the desert, and through the different times which we made a covenant with Hashem, there's 48 different covenants or arur, curses or blessings, which we have between us and Hashem to keep the Torah. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, or ve'ein lach kol dava, ve'ein lacha kol var mitzvah mitzvah shabbat. So therefore, every mitzvah, any of the 613 mitzvahs, any mitzvah in the Torah, there isn't any of them shelo nichras to Allah that doesn't have connected with it a bris, a covenant of aber shmeina brisos. So all 613 commandments have 48 pacts between us and Hashem to, blessing if we keep it, of course if we don't keep it. There's 48 covenants for each of the 613 mitzvahs. But then the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's ish kfar Akko, the man from Akko, Amar Mishum Rabbi Shimon, he said in the name of Rabbi Shimon, Ein lecha mitzvah mitzvah sheksuva b'Torah. You don't have any commandment which is written in the Torah, let's say 613 commandments, shelo nichras to Allah, that there isn't on that commandment Aboyim u'shmona brises, 48 covenants, times shel shesh meis elef, sheish alach mechamesh meis v'chamishim, 603,550. There were 603,550 Jewish men between the ages of 20 and 60 in the desert, so that's the number we have. So every mitzvah in the Torah, you have with Hashem, on that mitzvah, you have 48 pacts with Hashem, times 600,000. Why? Because you accept that mitzvah, every mitzvah of Shabbos and of Klayim and of kosher and all the different mitzvahs we have, you accepted it, that mitzvah 48 times, 48 verses, covenants with Hashem, times, because you accepted it for every other Jewish person as well. Right? So today will be times, I don't know, the number 12 million, whatever the number is. Right? And so then we had a number of 600,000 or 603,550. Right? So that's pretty loaded each mitzvah. But the Gemara says there's an alternative understanding of Reb Shimon's position, and Rebbe said that according to Reb Shimon Yehuda Ishkar Alkar, the same name Reb Shimon, and I'll just tell it to you outside. He says, no, the number is a little bit more. You see, I accept my mitzvah, and it's 48. So I accept my mitzvah plus for every other Jew. But every other Jew also has a Areivut cosign for every other Jew. So you have to, I accept this mitzvah. I got the 48 times. I accept it for every Jew, but I accept for every Jew, I'm responsible for his responsibility for every other Jew. So that's whatever you want to work out the math. So that comes, now the difference of opinion would be, if let's say, the difference would be in a practical case, and they quote this on the bottom, a practical difference between the two opinions would be, everyone would agree that whatever mitzvah, every mitzvah, I'm obligated for every other Jew as well. If they don't do it, and I have a way to help prevent them, help teach them, then I'm responsible. But let's say there's Mr. X. Mr. X is doing something wrong. I have no way of teaching and helping that person not do the wrong. But my friend Jimmy has the ability to do that, and he doesn't do it. So according to the first opinion, I'm not held accountable for that, because I took responsibility for my mitzvah and for everyone else's mitzvah, but I can't stop that person. But according to the second opinion, I accepted responsibility for your responsibility too. And since you, Jimmy, accepted responsibility and you, Jimmy, could stop him, so then I could have helped you to convince you to stop that other person, then I would be held accountable. That would be a difference between the two opinions. Someone has the computer calculation.
17,455,084,920,000 obligations.
For each minute.
Yeah. Well, that's for the 48 times 603,000.
So now, till now, we've been focused on the very heavy responsibility. But at the same time, it makes your load a little lighter. Hashem's going to say to you, you didn't do this mitzvah. Okay, but I got a lot of other 12 million people who are also responsible. So, so in that sense, that part is pretty good if you're connected to other people. The Rabbi Dessler quotes, he brings this in a talk he gave pre-Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Dessler quotes the Zohar and Pashas Maya, where the Zohar says, come see, in the time of judgment, when there's judgment in the world, or the time of judgment as it relates to Rosh Hashanah, when there's judgment in the world, a person should not mention his name above. A person shouldn't come up on Rosh Hashanah and say, okay, Hashem, I'm here, Avram Yosef, and etc., I'm here, I'm ready to face that. Time of judgment, don't mention your name, don't come there. But, and there's a few words in between, but B'toch Ami Anochi Yeshavet says that I dwell amongst the people. And therefore, the Zohar says, Man da'ayil reisha ben amma, someone who puts himself in amongst the nation, puts himself in within everyone else, then lo yashkechinun alaha, then they won't do some direct supervision, so to speak, on the person to judge him bad. So, as Rabbi Dessler understands the Zohar, is that when you face judgment on Rosh Hashanah, don't walk in and say, okay, Hashem, it's me, this is what I did wrong, this is what I did good, here it's me, judge me. Put yourself and say, Hashem, I'm here with this community and the whole community and all Jewish people, I am here, and we all have done good things, we've done bad things, we'd like to do better things, we want to improve ourselves, etc., etc., etc. But put yourself in amongst the people. Come as part of the people, and then according to Zohar, you're a lot better off than trying to show up yourself. Rabbi Dessler says that from this concept of Arvis, from this concept of co-signing it, on one hand, we talked about the importance that you have on everyone else's obligation, but at the same time, you can be a lot better off as you show up as a community. If you take a look at the second handout, it's in Hebrew only, but I will translate it as we read along. So this is name of Sefer is Madregas Adam, and this is from the Alta of Nevada, one of the great Bali Musa Yeshivas. And he says he's talking about the obligations to help influence and teach other people. So what we're skipping, we're going to start with base. We're skipping is that he says if you are, in colloquial terms, if you're Rabbi Noach Weinberg, you say, okay, if I was Rabbi Noach Weinberg, okay, I would give speeches, I would get on a plane, talk to people next to me, I can influence people. I don't have that power of speech, I don't know the right things to say. So that's number one. He says, okay, we have a good excuse. I didn't influence the whole world because I'm not Rabbi Noach Weinberg, I'm not Rabbi XYZ, all these other people who have these great ways of teaching. I don't know how to do that. So we're going to skip that because he says a lot of us, most of us can have that excuse. So, but base on page Reish Chesed in the first column says V'yesh derech sheni la'avod b'avodas harabah. But there's another way which you can be involved with everybody else. Al yidei dibur chaverim, connecting with your chaverim, with other people. Kemo she'sider Rabbi Chia, as Rabbi Chia, which we read in the Talmud, she'akur adadi. He didn't teach them. He got some people together so they can learn Chumash with each other. He taught them all Chumash. Now you learn with somebody else. Va'asna adadi, teach Mishnah to each other. And therefore, lasas al yisodas eila. So based on these ideas, yeshivas kavutzim chalmaka. So you can't give the speech, but you can be involved in setting up a community yeshiva, gatherings of Torah in all places. Ein b'krak, ein be'er, whether it's in a big city or a small city. Ve'ein b'kfar, or a small village. L'saveh, to go around to different communities, different cities. She'ikonis kol hadar tzayer, so you can bring in all of the Jewish people. Tachas degel haTorah, underneath the banner of Torah, the year and awe of God. The Chalmokim in all places. Now you say he's naive. Okay, in America, we're going to go get all the Jewish people in America. But this was in a time where I think most Jews in Europe, where he lived, were also not connected to Torah and learning Torah. But that didn't stop him from saying, let's get everybody involved. He said, and this obligation, so this is not just a nice thing, but this obligation, this is incumbent upon every single person. This obligation to help create yeshivos and places of learning and study and of awe and fear of God. Because everyone could be of help. Every single person in our room tonight, all of us can be of help. Why? Yes, some of us maybe can give a share. Other people can help get a group together. Other people can help bring people in. Or you can help bring the food, fix the windows. You can be the bus driver to bring people in. You can take care of the meals, so all the needs for people to study. Maybe you have the ability to help lead something, but every single person, he writes, has obligation to help out, to teach, to create Torah for all Jewish people. And the next paragraph, he says, and about this, the verse says, cursed, one who doesn't participate, he writes, about them, it's not just, okay, it's not for me, I'm going to get involved. He quotes, he says that about such a person who's not getting involved, it says, cursed is the person who doesn't help establish the Torah. Amru Chazal, and our rabbis teach us, if you have the ability to somehow help people be in awe of God, to learn Torah, and you didn't help, the Talmud says you're included in that verse that says, cursed. You are cursed. Now, this is understood This curse is not for somebody who doesn't go around with great lectures which inspire everybody. Because you can exempt yourself from that. Uloma and say, I don't know how to do that. But this curse, this curse is for those who don't help to have places of Torah and teaching, so every Jewish person can have the ability to learn something. Skipping a few words. In every city and city, every city can make some type of chevra group of strengthening, keeping Shabbos, tikkun advice, helping a mikvah, and all aspects, in every aspect which you can help. As we said before, as of Arvis, you're obligated on the mitzvahs of every single Jew. You could be of help, and somehow you can think of something. Every person can help in some way. The Seattle Kollel, and everyone should be terrified. You should be terrified. We don't want to be you are cursed from God. God says you're cursed if you're not participating to help others. No. You're not doing what you could do. Skipping down to the bottom paragraph. It says, Ad kama tovas haTorah. And you can see how far the Torah, God asks of us. Mina oved sheyafker menuchasei. God says that you want to be at peace, at rest. God says, you have to give up some of your quiet time, your peace of mind. Uliyes goyla, and God saying you should exile yourself, you should move yourself, mimakam lamakam. Move yourself from XYZ shul to a EB shul. It's far away, but, or to Portland, to Eugene, to Capitol Hill, to Mercer Island. Well, how? Laharbit's Torah v'yira, to increase Torah and awe of God. Now, of course, we know that when we're very young, we need to learn ourselves first, so we need to focus on that. We need to be careful not to be influenced by others, so you need to be careful about that. But of course, Rabbi Noach Weinberger said also over in the name in the Yeshiva of Chaim Shmulevitz, in the early years of, I'm not sure if it was Esha Torah or Rabbi Noach Weinberger's previous yeshiva, but in some of the early years, he davened on Yom Kippur, he brought his yeshiva to daven in the Meir Yeshiva in Jerusalem. And Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, one of those Yom Kippurs, said to yeshiva students, now yeshiva students, their job as young men were still to study and prepare themselves for responsibilities later in life. But he told them, Rabbi Noach Weinberg said, that if there's anyone here today in yeshiva on Yom Kippur who at least one night during the year lost sleep because of the Jewish people all around the world who are so far away from knowing any Torah, if there's anyone here who didn't lose sleep, doesn't belong here in Yom Kippur. Not to embarrass anyone else, of course they didn't all walk out, but Reb Chaim Shmulevitz is teaching them, we're young, what's my responsibility? What can I do? Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, it's your responsibility, and that's why you should be crying for them. You're doing your responsibility now. Your job now is to sit and learn, because that's what you need now. And some of us, and you have to speak to your Rebbe, to your Rav, to see what's best for you. Some of us need to still learn more. We need to worry about being influenced by others. So we have to take that into consideration. But we are responsible for the others as well. And if the least you can do is lose a night's sleep, can't do anything, the daven for other people. The author writes, 3 lines from the bottom, and he quotes the Gemara, or the Tanna B'Eliyahu he quotes. 3 lines from the bottom. Shemet Taimru, maybe you'll say, Oisen Shivim Elef Ish, the 70,000 people, Shenehergu B'Givat Binyamin, there were 70,000 people killed in Givat Binyamin. If Nei Ma Nehergu, why were they killed? So Tana B'El says, "L'fisha hayu lahem l'Sanhedrin Gedela." It's the fault of the Sanhedrin of those days, the high court of the Jewish people is their fault. Why? Shaniach Moshe Yeshua of Pinchas, which took over the Sanhedrin after Moshe and Yeshua and Pinchas. What they should have done is tie ropes of metal to their loins, and pick up their long coats. The 70,000 people died because the Sanhedrin should have picked up their coats and traveled through all the cities of Israel. Yom Echad Lachish, one day they could travel to the city of Lachish. Yom Echad to Hebron, one day to Hebron. Yom Echad to Bethel. Yom Echad to Yerushalayim. Travel from place to place. Likewise in all the places of Israel. They should teach the Jewish person Davar Echad, one thing. B'Shana, B'Shtayim, B'Shalosh. I don't know the exact, how to translate those exact words. If somebody knows, please tell me. But learn one thing or two or three. Right? So I didn't say I'd go to the city of Bethel and teach the Jews there everything. Davar Echad, go teach them something. Kadeshi is Gadol V'Yizkadesh Shmoi Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. Because by going around from town to town, then they can raise and elevate the name of Hashem. The Heimai also came. They didn't do that. Ela Kol Nichnasu Kolecha the Karma. Each one entered his own binyan. V'ama Shalom Alayach Nafshi. Peace to my soul. Kadesh Lo Harbor Salei Matera. Because it takes a lot of effort in those days to travel from town to town. Right? You get on your horse, your wagon, your donkey, the roads. It takes a long time. Go to every city in Israel. It was a big, it took a lot of effort. And the fikat, and therefore, they give out Binyamin, and therefore in this area of Binyamin, where they weren't studying Torah and Derech Eretz, 70,000 died. Mi Haragas Kalela, who killed them? Who's at fault that those 70,000 people died? Sanhedrin Gedela, that great court which was then in those days, which did not take the effort to go around from town to town to teach a word or two or three to other people. And he continues. If somebody was in the Sanhedrin in those days, they worked very hard to know the whole Torah. They weren't lazy beach bums. They worked very, very hard. And they might have had a full plate of people coming to them to ask questions of them. They could have been pretty busy. But still, they were held responsible for not assisting and helping those other communities. And the next paragraph he says, Mavel al-Harayan is amazing. Ad kama magia hachiyav ala-over. How far does this obligation go? Ki at-Torah matila olav achraya shel kol olam kula. The Torah obligates us the responsibility of the whole world. Literally the whole world, and you're responsible to every other Jew. And that's your responsibility. And you can't exempt yourself. Well, I'm serving God here. I'm learning Torah here, so I'm exempt. That doesn't help. You need to travel from place to place. Even at a time, even in those days where traveling was very hard. Not everyone had a horse and a wagon like the Alton Navardik had. Alton Navardik, by the end of his life, he might have been cars maybe around, or trains. I think he had trains around. Well, he says, we got these good horses and wagons to go from town to town, so we don't have such a big excuse. But they didn't even have such good horses and wagons back then. Still, you have to pick up your coat, and travel from place to place by foot. The complaint on them was, why don't you get on your feet and walk to the next city? 3 days, 4 days, okay. So, there are Jewish people there. They need to learn. So it takes 4 days to walk there. Okay, so go. The Asad Shamakom is Taurus. to establish their places of Torah. And then in the rest of the paragraph, he goes on to say, and we're talking about this great Sanhedrin who did work very hard to study Torah. And they were working hard to help teach people. But there was still this complaint on them. And in the bottom paragraph, he brings the famous example, why you can't just sit alone for yourself, the famous example of the person in the boat who makes the hole under his seat and says, it's just a hole under my seat. So he says that, and he's not worried about everyone else. But the guy in the next cabin says, well, there's no hole in my cabin, I'm okay. Well, you're not okay if there's a hole in another cabin. And that's what he continues over here with these very strong words. The way of understanding of Areivut, Rabbi Dessler quotes two possibilities of understanding. There's a very amazing Gemara in Makos. Gemara Makos says that the rule is that if somebody kills somebody by mistake, in certain cases, then they have to go to a city of refuge. And when can they leave the city of refuge? When the Kohen Gadol and the high priest dies. So the Talmud says, two ways the Gemara says this. One way the Gemara says is that therefore the mothers of the Kohen Gadol would feed and bring food to people who killed somebody by mistake in the cities of refuge. They would bring food and clothing to them. Why? So people in the refuge cities should not pray that their son should die. Right? Because they only get free, right? They get out of the refuge city, they get out of jail if the Kohen Gadol dies. So they would want to pray, possibly the Kohen Gadol would die. So the mothers of the Kohen Gadols would bring a lot of food and clothing and help them out, then they didn't pray. And the explanation is that if they would pray that the Kohen Gadol die, the Kohen Gadol maybe would die. Why should the Kohen Gadol die? Because of their prayers. Somebody prays that Kohen Gadol should die. If Kohen Gadol didn't do anything wrong, he doesn't have to worry about anything. And the explanation of the Gemara and Rashi is that the Kohen Gadol is at fault for not through his prayers, through his teaching, through his high level of spirituality. The Kohen Gadol should have been a little bit better in his holiness, and that would have helped prevent people from being negligent and killing somebody by mistake. And therefore, the Kohen Gadol is held responsibility. Kohen Gadol is responsible for himself not to kill anyone in a negligent way, but he's also responsible for another Jew. And if another Jew kills somebody in a negligent way, then the highest spiritual person of the Jewish people should have helped pray to his spiritual level, should have helped prevent that, and therefore, since he's responsible, so now if no one claims the responsibility, if I'm a co-signer alone, and no one claims, so I'm okay. Once you claim for the money, then I'm a co-signer, I have to pay for it. So Rabbi Dessler says, if the person who's a co-signer complains and says to God, listen, I'm here in the city of refuge, and I'm held responsible, but Kohen Gadol co-signed on me. And if he would have been a little bit more careful, it wouldn't have happened. If he would have prayed more, it wouldn't have happened. So then now the person tells to God, I'm collect the payment from the Kohen Gadol. So then that's why it could happen. So this way of looking at the concept of a co-signer is that you're a co-signer on somebody else. So we're separate people. I'm a co-sign for you. And if I'm held responsible, if there's a claim, then I have to pay for it. There's no claim, I might not have to pay for it. That's one way of looking. But then the Gemara says a different way of looking at it. The Gemara says, some say that Kohen Gadol's mothers would bring food and clothing to the refuge cities, so that the people in the refuge city should pray that the Kohen Gadol lives. Right? The Kohen Gadol mother is thinking, if they don't pray that the Kohen Gadol should live, he won't live. Right? So they hear the responsibility is even if they don't make a claim against you, if they don't do anything, then the Kohen Gadol might die. So she brought them food that they should pray the Kohen Gadol should continue to live. And Rabbi Dessel says that concept of Arvis, and the Maral says a similar idea, is that concept of Arvis is because we as a Jewish people, we're one person, we're one Jewish people with different limbs. And therefore, if one limb has a hole in it, has a problem with it, then that affects the rest of the body. So even if the people of the refuge city don't do anything, just the fact that they did something wrong, they were negligent, they did something wrong, Kohen Gadol is automatically responsible for, and therefore might die because of it. And in that concept of Arvis, we are all considered as one person, and then if any part of us is hurting or missing, so then that hurts us as well. And that's why automatically he can get hurt for not praying better or doing his job in a more perfect way, which would have prevented that from taking place. So those are some of the ideas. What are some practical things that we can do or learn from? I'll say a few thoughts, but you're welcome to share some thoughts as well. But yes.
With that last point, the first reason that the mothers of the Kohen Gadol would give food was so that they wouldn't pray to kill the Kohen Gadol. It's interesting. You would think that the first step of teaching responsibility is to take responsibility for yourself. And that right there is teaching that you don't take responsibility for yourself, right? Like, I accidentally killed someone, so therefore I'm going to put my blame on the Kohen Gadol. It's his fault because he didn't do a good enough job inspiring me. How are you going to teach responsibility that way? Does that make sense? Or is that...
Oh, we have plenty of classes of Torah which we say, why don't you keep the mitzvah? Why don't you keep the mitzvah? Like most of my classes, I'm saying, okay, here's the mitzvah, you need to keep the mitzvah, you need to keep the mitzvah. And so most of the time we're saying, you got to be responsible, you got to be responsible, you got to be responsible for yourself, you got to make good choices. But tonight, we're saying that besides your responsibility, but when I do something wrong, I can say, listen, how come you didn't help me not do the wrong, So, maybe one way to look at it. So first of all, practically when you daven on Rosh Hashanah, and it's in plural, so it's not so hard to think of yourself as you're not just there yourself. It is in plural, even the Al-Khatayim, right? That's the most simple answer. It says for the sins, right? So it's even strange that anyone would ask the question. I didn't do this wrong. Why am I saying it? I didn't see. It says Hashem. It says in plural, so it's not just you. The plural actually means all of us. To help us understand that, they have a nice custom. One of the reasons why they have this nice custom at Ezra B'Seira, before they daven Shemona Esrei, is to actually go like that to each other, to remind themselves that I'm going to daven Shemona Esrei, I'm going to say, hail us, and I shouldn't mean me, royal us. Right? I should actually mean hail us. Now I have an affliction, and so has one, and Mrs. Bergman's father, and us should actually mean us. So that's very simple. But have that us in mind, both for our strong level of responsibility for each other, have that in mind, but also for that, so to speak, safety in numbers, that being part of the Jewish people, as the Zohar says, that coming as part of the people and coming in front of Hashem as part of it, we're a lot better off. Practically, put into your daily activities about a half a minute, maybe, or half a minute each day to think about what you can do as your responsibility for the community. If you have more time, great. But if you don't have any time because you had a very busy day and you're at work and taking care of family and taking care of the house and a lot of things you're taking care of, spend a half a minute and say, I'm responsible for the whole community. And so what can I do? Well, even if you can't do anything else that day, daven for a few seconds and says, please Hashem, help the Torah institutions grow, help the people come closer to Torah, help. It takes a few seconds to say that. You have a tzedakah box, say it. I'm responsible for the whole community. Here, I'm going to give tzedakah, which will allow and help the community. If we're all one people, so, I don't know, from the finger to the toes, whatever, where exactly we fit into the body, I don't know. But you should be curious what the rest of your body looks like, right? But somehow. So, once a year, if you're an EB person, then go to the AB place, and if you're the BC person, go to the DE place. Just once a year, so you're responsible for all those people there. And not only that, but they're taking responsibility for you too. It's good to see who they are once in a while. All the time, okay, you have your place to daven, but just have some interest in seeing who or what they are. Right? There's a group of Jews on the Mercer Island, there's a group of Jews on North End. Once a year, just read about what's happening there or know something about them. Right? We know, Rabbi Franz says over, that the word for a cruel person is an achzar. He says that can be broken into two words. Ach, only, zar, strange. A cruel person is somebody who relates to somebody else. Is like, what does that have to do with me? What does it do with my life? I've got my own business, my own stuff. I'm overwhelmed myself. I don't want to hear or know from others. That's when you do that. That's the definition of a cruel person. Rabbi Franz says. You didn't do any acts of cruelty yet, and hopefully you won't. But you're a cruel person. But if I'm co-signing and I'm responsible, at least go into the other place and meet another Jew, so you can come back and say, there's nothing I can do. I mean, I co-sign on that, but what can I do? But at least take a look and then safely say that maybe. So, concept of avarice should help us to think about not just ourselves, but to extend ourselves. And in the local area, there's different neighborhoods here with our Jewish people within our neighborhood. So those are some ideas and thoughts which maybe can be practical. You have some practical ideas.